Today we have with us Sophie Lourdes Knight, an artist residing in London. Her work concentrates on unconventional depictions of objects, and she works with painting, photography, sculpture, and more. Currently, we are here at her solo exhibition at Random Oranges called Some Echo Trapped Here. Welcome to listening to these shades.
Thank you.
So, talk to me a little bit about the exhibit.
Yeah, so the exhibition title comes from a magic realist book, Pedro Paramore, by Juan Rocco, and it's kind of like the beginning book for the magic realist genre. And there's this line in the book called Some Echo Trapped Here, which the actual passage that it's from is to do with death, but that's not what the exhibition's about. It's more about cyclicity, like things repeating, patterns repeating. Like there's an echo, there's like the remnants of something that I can see, but it's in a new form and it's repeating itself. So that's kind of the spark for the show.
Yeah, so the idea has to do with, does it also have to do with like memory and like space?
Yeah, I think so. It's a lot of the objects in the show are either personal objects or they're kind of like generic objects that remind you of something, but they're quite empty of their character, I guess, so you can add your character to them. Yeah.
So some of these works are old and then some of them are new, so how did you decide which ones to?
So with the gallery we kind of went through back and forth many times, and I had made some new work specifically for the show. I even made some things when I was here last week even, which is very quick, but I work quite quickly and ideas come quite quickly, and the way I paint is honestly quite fast. But yeah, some of it, the older works, they just really worked with the theme, and I think me and the gallery were excited to show them in a new place. Like some of the works have been shown in England, and it's always nice to take them out of their context, and also work with older things to then make new things in response, to kind of get that cyclicity. I think there's a tendency to feel like it all has to be new, and I had a bit of an anxiety about that, but I think that's why the works on paper were essential, really, because it's a bit like a sketchbook for me.
That's wonderful. So you said that you've exhibited a lot of these works before. So how is the context, or like how have the ideas in the paintings evolved from then to now, and like your previous exhibitions?
That's a good question. I think it's always about sequencing. So like it's always a new context there, and obviously, like in this space, it's such a unique space.
Yeah.
But also like sequencing things next to each other in order they wouldn't normally have been together, or maybe they've been shown in group shows, so it's just been isolated. So now it's like thinking about them as a grouping, and what that does. And then in this gallery in particular, it's 5 separate rooms, so each room becomes its own world in a way.
That makes sense. So can we chat a little bit about more broadly what the thematic focus of your work is? So I've noticed that a lot of your work has to do with objects, so what draws you to them? And like we literally just did a still life workshop.
Yeah, I mean, as a teacher, that's when I teach people to begin drawing, that we start from just what's around you, and I think the traditional still life is like a bowl of fruit or a vase or something, but it's a really good starting point for if you don't know what to draw and you're getting stuck on maybe a concept, just looking at what's around you and saying, okay, that's an interesting shape, or it's casting a really nice reflection, or it's mirroring something. Then it's physically in front of you. It's so much easier than trying to like pluck something out of your head. And some of the objects are quite personal, or they'll just be something that I picked up that feels quite universal. But usually it's to cropping and it's zooming in or it's pulling really far out and it's taking something that's maybe super recognizable and trying to find an angle where it's a bit off, it's a bit wonky, it's like it's unexpected and awkward. Because they don't necessarily want like objects of beauty or I mean some of them are like the ribbons and some of the jewels. Yeah. But like I want them to not be themselves. I want them to sort of have a strange angle or be like just the composition makes them a bit like something off about it.
Yeah. So what kind of emotional response do you want to evoke with that offness in mind?
Yeah, I think exactly that, like a kind of uncanny like uncertainty. You're not given any clues really as to why it's there, or like something's kind of floating in this more vacuous color field and then it's just there and you have no context for where it is or why it's in front of you or so it might be quite a calming image, like tonally or in the colors, but then it's unsettling because you're like, oh, but I'm not sure what it is actually. Like I can put a name to it, but I'm not sure it's right. So I think for me that's exciting because it's like, oh, then I need to make another painting to like kind of explain the painting I did before. It's like a way to trick myself into making more paintings.
That makes a lot of sense. I've also noticed that even like living and human forms in your work are depicted in like an inanimate way. So, like hands or like pets or animals. So can you talk a little bit about what the goal was with that? Or is it just a process of doing the same cropping, zooming in?
It's kind of the same process. I mean, I really avoid the human figure quite strongly, but I think it's if there's an animal, it's a way to try and express emotion usually. Like a lot of my objects are static. They don't move. I mean, that's obviously a painting, but I think with the fish and like the horse hooves, it's kind of to get a suggestion of some sort of movement or like vibration, or like this thing is not fixed and static. It's not just like a ribbon that's laying there or an engine or whatever it is. It's like there's something moving.
That makes sense. So, how do you think your work is like changed over time and evolved? What ways is like the subject that you're interested in changed? Because I've noticed that you veered even further away from like human forms.
Yeah, it used to be figures because that's how you start. Or a lot of people start that way. You do an animal drawing, or you're kind of looking for a mirror and you do portraiture or something. I think I've just gotten a lot more experimental and a lot less self-conscious about how it ends up looking, and I'm really enjoying color and aggressive use of color, maybe, and trying to make things really jarring in a way, but also like starting from a jarring place and then trying to make it harmonious. So like really setting a challenge and then like working backwards from kind of a difficult point.
So when you your use of color is like quite unconventional. So are these like decisions that you make before painting, or do you just do it throughout the process?
It's throughout the process. I don't really keep a sketchbook, so the works on paper are very much like sketches. But I can't really. I mean, a few of them are planned out, but so much of it happens as we're painting, and then like what we did in the workshop with, I've done a green wash, I need to now like add another wash of contrast, or it's quite intuitive to begin with, and I can't just start from like a white surface. Sometimes I'll know what object I want to put or what imagery or what from my own photographs, but those ones end up being not as satisfactory in a way, because it's like I know how to do it, like the images in my head and I'm not like kind of struggling or exploring as much. So I like to I just will put any color down and then I'm like, okay, now I have to solve it. Yeah.
So it's like a puzzle.
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't really matter how it begins because it will change so much during the whole process. Yeah.
That makes sense. What draws you to the kinds of colors and washes that you use?
It's very, I think it's kind of like flavor of the month. You know, like I got really into that particular purple that's in that movie for a very long time, and then now I'm obsessed with orange, and then I kind of had a green phase, which is why like the cabbage wire in the other room is so green. Like I think you do just, or I just get addicted to color, and then it's a bit like, it's just like this is the one for me for now, and then I'll eventually get over it and try something. Usually I'll jump to like the opposite, so now I'll go from green to red. I'll be like, okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I really love red the same way. So even the paintings I did in the workshop, both of them had a lot of red in it. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about works that are not paper in like your paintings. So a lot of your sculpture work also focuses on like mundane and everyday objects, but it's like surrealistic. So in what ways is it like different for you? Is it like a different practice?
It's not so much different. I think I approach it like the same. It's like, oh, I would have painted this, but maybe I'll try and make it in 3D. But like, it's more like switching the medium. Is if I'm feeling really stuck in a painting or something, like I'll go make a book instead. Like it's just trying to find another creative outlet to keep, like it feels all the same to me, whether it becomes a sculpture, a book, or a photograph, or a painting. It's just like you're getting out that creative energy, and sometimes it's not worth powering through a painting if it's not bringing you joy. So it's like, okay, I need to be active with my hands. I'm gonna go like do some 3D sculpting or something.
Yeah.
And then it kind of knocks you out of that. Or it helps me get unstuck because I'm like, okay, I've let out my creative energy in a different way, which felt productive. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like where do you draw like your inspiration from? So what other artists or like other things inspire you?
Loads of people. I don't know, there's an artist, I don't know if you know Alison Katz. Yeah, she's like a Canadian artist living in London, and her practice is kind of like, her painting practice is just very prolific, and she'll make posters about her work. She's kind of like I really admire the way she works because everything is important, and everything is, it's not just like, okay, I've done the painting, and it doesn't really matter what the text is, or the poster, the this, the that. It's like she's kind of thinking of the whole package and the whole experience of viewing art, which I really like. And I don't just look at painters, I look at sculptors and photographers. I think it's good to not just look at. You can get quite stifled if you just look at one mode of making, and you can get so much inspiration from something completely different. So I can't really think of anybody else on the spot, but she's a big one that I always go back to, and I'm like, well, what would Alison do? What would she make for her poster? Or like, just for inspiration. And reading, like that magic realism. Other books that I really love, like I'm not very good with words, like I don't consider myself very good at writing, but like a single line can become a show, so I kind of keep a running notebook of lines from books.
That makes sense. So do you use them as titles for your paintings also? Because I've noticed they're quite literal.
I don't really like a poetic or romantic title. I think it's actually, it helps with the paintings if it's just like the something, the whatever it is, because sometimes if it's very abstracted, it'll be like, oh, I'm not sure how that is what it's saying it is. But If that makes sense. Yeah.
That does. So also, how do you decide what objects to paint? So is it just whatever? Is it just flavor of the month again? Or?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it'll be quite specific. I'll work from my own photographs, and it'll be like I want to do a series on mirrors or ribbons, or they're usually like things that are reflective or that are like just they cast a lot of shadow. It's just kind of like playing around with like just the bones of painting, and like if you were approaching painting as a beginner, you'd want to think about tone, light and dark, interesting spaces, angles, all these things. It's a little bit like it's a bit nerdy painting because it's like what is going to give me the most enjoyable painting experience, or what's going to give me like the most challenging one. If it's it's a very muted, washed out image. How do I make that interesting? So I think it's random. It definitely is a little bit random, but they usually always cycle back to being something quite personal in the end.
Yeah. So can you give me like examples of your personal objects that you've painted?
Yeah, like I did. I had a painting called. It was kind of a little series. It was Fiona's stairs was one, and then Fiona's comb, and they're objects that my aunt, like related to my aunt who passed away, and like Fiona's stairs in particular, it's like the staircase that's outside of her apartment, and her entire apartment was red, like floor, ceiling, walls, everything. She loved the color red, and so I painted the stairs outside like a deep green because it was my way of like I don't quite know what I was getting at there, but like the contrast of what I did was behind the wall and then outside, and something about I don't know, just kind of commemorating her, but like in the opposite way or something. So things like that, and that's the one that comes to mind. Yeah, so it's just a little poem of hers as well,
You also mentioned that you're an art teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that experience like?
Oh, it's great. It's like it's with kids and teenagers, so 8 to 18 is the age range, and I've been doing it for about 5 years now, and it's just so much fun, especially the younger kids, because they're unembarrassed. They don't have inhibitions. The teenagers are a bit more embarrassed if they get something wrong. You can actually see it. There's like a kind of age zone around like 12 where they get very self-conscious. But it's interesting because it's like that's when you see them kind of not just follow instruction and not take your word for things, and then like, wait, actually no, I'm going to try this and see if it works. And it's really rewarding because it's just really nice when they're excited and happy. And I've learned so much. Like my drawing skills are 1,000 times better after like trying to explain it to someone. So I'm like, oh, actually, I don't know how I would do that. So then I have to practice, and it's kind of a very mutual exchange.
That's wonderful. Just one last question. What are you working on right now, and what have you been just paying attention to in terms of art?
Well, for this show, actually, I did my first bronze casting, and I'm really excited about that. I'm not sure how much I'll be able to do back in London, but I think I want to get out some more clay and just play around with some sculpture. This was kind of the big, I need a break after this show, but later in the year, I'm hoping to maybe have a residency or something. I'm always painting. It's just paper all the time, but I do want to do a bit more sculpture, I think.
That's nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.